Hello, everyone. My name is Craig Baldwin, partner at Upsourced, and welcome to today's episode of Creative Outcomes, where we're going to talk about annual account planning, or rather, some tips, some tricks, some best practices to add stability to your current accounts, find new growth, and keep your team members accountable as you're going through that process. So, first, before we get into an actual account plan, I want to talk a little bit about why, from not only an accountant or CFO's perspective, but just a business owner perspective, why we would even go through the process of doing annual account plans and then certainly updating them on a somewhat frequent basis, whether that's quarterly or biannually, depending on the size of my business and the size of my accounts. Um, I've created a fake organization here. I've called it Agency Co. So just pretend that I work or I'm on the leadership team at Agency Co. You can see I'm actually the revenue owner. I've been fortunate enough to be hired as a CRO. And I've been working through our current accounts to figure out how we're going to meet our goal or our revenue target for 2025. And as many of you know, that's not an easy thing to do, especially right now, right? But it doesn't happen without really great planning and alignment on the team on who owns what and how we're going to get there. And so this is the very first step. So last year, my agency was lucky enough to do $4.2 million in revenue. We had a good year. We grew a little bit, managed margins appropriately, delivered some great work to the clients. But this year, we want to grow a little bit more. The target that I've been handed from my leadership team, and I don't know how they came up with it, but I'm just going to guess that they put out a percentage that made them feel comfortable, is 15%. That gets me to 4.83 million. So that would be a pretty significant year, a pretty significant boost in growth year over year, especially in a year where there's a lot of uncertainty in the broader economic climate. So how do we get there? And are these expectations even reasonable? Well, as someone who owns revenue at my organization, these are the things I think about every single day before I go to bed at night, when I'm eating lunch. What dollars do we already have accounted for? And then what dollars do I need to go find and get? And how likely is it that I can find those dollars? So this is what we're doing in spreadsheet form. In this particular view, which is very basic in nature, I've put down the revenue that my team has already booked, in this case in 2024, or maybe even previous to that, that we still stand to earn. So this is work that we still need to deliver, but we know we can count on this revenue over the coming months. And so you can see a couple of my clients here: eHammer Sports, Freewheel Gaming, Skynet AI. Excuse me, that's a scary company. Cool Eats QSR. So we service a broad range of clients. We provide a robust set of creative services, even some digital services as well. And you can see that before I even start the year, my team is going to be delivering on just over 3 million in revenue. So that makes me feel pretty good, actually. If I need to get to 4.83, I know that I'm pretty close and can get to at least 3. I already have that I can count on it, right? However, there's more work that needs to be done. I have to go fill a gap, so to speak, of, I don't know. Actually, let's find out what that gap is. Give me 1 second. We will do this and this. So I got another 1.8 I got to go find, right? Well, before I put a bunch of pressure on my new business development team, which, as we all know, is not the easiest thing in the world to do and is highly variable, I'm going to go look at those current accounts and I'm going to talk to my account leaders and understand what opportunity actually lives in those accounts, right? And I'm going to need them to give their best guess or estimate as to what they think they can reasonably get above and beyond from what's already signed from those accounts. And so that's what we're doing here. And this is really, these two top lines are where the account planning process comes into play. And we'll go through a sample account plan. But right here, if I look at eHammer Sports, we don't have any near-term deals necessarily. We have something in the pipeline that we hope to sign, but it's probably going to be a couple months before it's signed and the work is actually kicked off. Now, one thing I want to delineate between here, and that can get kind of confusing, is there is a difference between bookings and revenue. Bookings is dollars or revenue that I have secured, but has not been realized yet. So I may sign a $1 million deal that could be realized over 12 months or 6 months or 3 months. But just because I've signed that deal and it is a $1 million booking does not mean that it's actually revenue on the income statement yet. It will not become revenue until we've performed the work and realized the related revenue in that period of time. And so it is important to sort of delineate between those two because sometimes clients will conflate those two numbers and then be perplexed as to why they thought they signed a big deal, but they weren't getting the revenue results that they wanted or desired on the income statement or on the P&L. What I've gone ahead and done here, and frankly, what we can do for our purposes is I'm actually not going to use the term bookings here. I'm going to use the term target ad revenue. So that means the bookings need to have already occurred, and this is how I expect to realize that revenue over time. And for the business which is not yet secured, the answer is always going to be in your pipeline. And hopefully you are keeping very good track of your deals, deal flow, whether it's current or new clients in that pipeline, and practicing really good pipeline hygiene, as we will call it. And that's a video in itself. But in lieu of going through a pipeline and talking about what are the deals in there today and how can those be extrapolated out over time, we're just going to go ahead and make some assumptions for the sake of this video that there are deals in the pipeline, or we suspect there will be deals in the pipeline. And my team members, my account managers, have committed to certain revenue amounts that they can go find above and beyond what's already been signed within those relationships. Okay. So what we're going to do here for target additional revenue for eHammer Sports is, because I don't have anything super close, but I think I can grab some money by March, for example, and kick off that work and start earning that revenue, is John has raised his hand as the account owner of eHammer Sports and says, hey, I think I can get another 250 grand on top of the 1.8 we already have. Well, if John can do that, I guess that's okay. Now he's going to need to tell me why and how and when that's going to happen. And that's where the account plan is going to come into play. And we're going to go through an example here in a little bit. But this is a very important precursor to that account plan, because I need to fully understand where is my opportunity, where is my risk, and how we're going to get to where we need to go. And if the dollars do not make sense on the spreadsheet, they're certainly not going to make sense in the account plan, right? So this is a prerequisite to doing those account plans. Now, we go ahead and we do the same thing for all of our other key relationships, okay? Free Will Gaming. Terry, my account owner there, is going to go find another 225K. Kathy told me she can find another 100K at Skynet. As you can tell, I think she's got a deal that she will probably sign, or maybe even have already signed before New Year's, and we're going to recognize some revenue, but she doesn't see a lot of opportunity with this account through the rest of 2025. John, it's a little bit different situation. We are rolling off some work with Cool Eats, and he does not feel good about our ability to go out and grab another large project. Now, what we could probably get is a nice maintenance contract. And so what he's planning on is that he's going to agree to a maintenance contract on the back half of the year, and that's going to get us 10 grand a month in revenue. And he's going to predict about another 50 grand in revenue from Cool Eats QSR. Crappy Airlines Travel, kind of a similar deal, just the other direction. So we have a contract that we think is going to come into play here pretty quickly in January. Again, we're going to pretend that this activity is actually probably happening in December 2024, ideally, maybe even November. But if you haven't done this yet, January, February, March, whenever you get it done, get it done. It's really important. But in the case of this, it's not yet signed. The revenue is not secured. Otherwise, it would be up top here for booked revenue. But down here, he's pretty sure he's going to get a more robust maintenance program than we would typically sell, and it's going to be $20,000. But it's only going to take us to August, right? He doesn't see a lot of opportunity after that. And so we're going to make a conscious decision as an organization to kind of wind down what we do with crappy airlines because, well, let's face it, they're crappy airlines, and we want to redeploy that energy and resource somewhere else. And then lastly, Victorian College, who for years and years was a great client of ours, they've just fallen off. It's not the same as it used to be. We've done a lot of web work for them, but we don't see a bright future. And so after having some conversations with Terry, I just don't feel very confident that we'll get any additional revenue past what's already secured. And as you can see, they were already on one of our cheaper maintenance plans anyway. So, we're happy to have the revenue that we get from them. They were a really great client for a period of time, but now it's time for us to move on, just like it is with Crappy Airlines. So you can see for each of my account managers, they have a lot of work that they still need to deliver on, and they own the relationship and they make sure that we do that, right? However, for some of them, they've got more work to do. And so that's all represented right here on this second line where we have a target additional revenue. So John's going to go find another 250, Terry another 225, Kathy another 100,000, John another 50 in Cool Eats, and Kathy said she gets another 160 in Crappy Airlines. Okay, cool. So that's good. We're making some progress, right? And so if I were to add sort of how we're making up the gap, so to speak, I've got, let's see. Well, I got 3.8. So, we're getting closer. What's my gap now? Well, you'll have a pretty good idea of what it is in a second. But if I go ahead and subtract my 3.8, all right, I got a gap of a little over $1 million. So where does that come from? Where will it come from as I'm planning right now? Now, listen, I want to state the obvious because I think it's important. I don't want you to take this for granted that I don't realize this. Anything can change. Crappy Airlines could come back to us with a huge budget. Free Will Gaming could shut things down. You don't know exactly what the future is going to be. But this whole exercise is about risk mitigation and giving yourself enough time to respond to react to that risk in advance, right? So we're only going to count, quote unquote, on certain revenue amounts from these clients. Because this is all we think we can count on, we need the new business team to pick up the slack. And in this case, that's Elizabeth. She looks after new business for us. She does a lot of RFPs. She does a lot of pitching. She manages our social media presence with our owner, Ted, and they work really hard together to go drive new business. And Elizabeth has basically signed up for a number that is about 1.2 million in bookings. Now, again, we talked about earlier, bookings does not exactly translate to revenue in a one-to-one. Hopefully it will over time, but it doesn't mean just because she's closed it that we can record that revenue right away. So actually what you'll see here is I've gone ahead and put down a generic target for Elizabeth of 1.2. We're just going to say, hey, it's $100,000 a month, Elizabeth, that you have to go find. Now, we know this probably come in chunks. She may sign a $300,000 deal, a $400,000 deal, maybe even a $1.2 million deal, and then she takes a vacation. I don't know. But our job is to put this expectation out there, and then we have to manage as owners and revenue leaders, we have to manage the ebb and flow of the business appropriately. But just by doing this, it's going to give us a little bit more comfort and certainty about the future. So if she goes and closes 1.2 in 2025, especially if she closes a deal in January that gets us $100,000 as an example, we probably won't recognize it until February. So I'm just going to go ahead and said, you know what, Elizabeth's going to be good for 1.1 million in revenue in 2025. Okay, so when I add all that up, what I got in my pocket already, so to speak, what my account team is committed to, and what Elizabeth is committed to, what do you know? I'm at 4.9. I'm slightly over the 4.830 that my leadership set as a target. All right, that's not bad, right? Now, what I will say with regard to planning and targets and all of this fun activity is, what are the odds that if I were to do this exercise and my committed revenue number came out to 4.830, that we would actually hit that number? Not very good, I guess, in my experience, at least I would say it's not very good that we hit that number exactly. So as a revenue leader or as an owner, I always want my committed number to be a little bit above what my target is, to give me some room, give me some flexibility. And guess what? If we go out and grab all that revenue or maybe even more, great. We're going to have a great happy hour or a party at the end of the year and maybe bigger bonuses and bigger commissions. And those are things that we want to celebrate. But I don't want to count on everything being picture perfect all the time because I know that's not business. I know that's not the world we live in. And so the fact that this number is a little bit higher than my actual target is good. And frankly, I wish it was even higher than that. But that's all the team said they got for me. And now it's my job as the CRO or the revenue leader to hold them accountable. It's pretty simple, right? So if I were to go ahead and let me go ahead and take these numbers out so it doesn't confuse you. This is where we have to assign ownership of these numbers. Now, I think this is probably controversial for some agencies, and depending on your size, it can be very controversial. However, if you are a growing agency, especially if you're an agency like this, that you're about $5 million a year in revenue, this is the only way to get to where you need to go, to be honest, from my perspective, is you have to disseminate responsibility throughout the business, hold people to account, and entrust them to perform. And your job as a leader is to support them every step of the way and do everything you can to either clear barriers that are in their way or support them when they need it to reach the heights that we've asked them to reach, right? And we can get into a little bit of that in the account planning. But in the case of John, he's got a little over 2.5 that he's going to own throughout the year in revenue delivery. Terry, 735,000, Kathy, 520,000, Elizabeth, she's got a pretty big job, 1.1. And we all know that new business tends to be a little bit more challenging than existing. Now, if I were to think about this in terms of my new business split compared to overall revenue split, let's take a look at that really quickly, because this is another thing that comes up really often with clients and I think can be a vexing topic. And it does change depending on the business. Okay, so right now, my new business is about 22%, a little over 22%. I think that's okay. Traditionally, as a revenue leader, I do not like to see that number be over 20%. I think it's really, really, really hard to go and make up that percentage of your business. In the earlier stages of your business, it may be a little bit higher, but as you grow and scale, I would want that to be sub 20%. And I would want as much growth, if not more, to come from current accounts. Now, I understand that current accounts don't stick around forever, but look, we've planned for that, right? And ultimately, what Elizabeth is going to do is bring in 1, 2, maybe 3 new logos this year. Those will go up into my account planning next year. And we're hoping to generate a significant amount of revenue on them, right? That's the goal. And so what we have here is an okay split, I would say, between net new business and existing business. And ultimately, this is just a plan. It could change. We're going to reevaluate this every single month. We're going to monitor our performance. We're going to monitor where we're spending our time, because the single most important thing for any sales or account leader is productivity. Am I using my time as efficiently as possible? And is it spent on the right things that turns into not only efficiency, but effectiveness, right? I need that efficacy in terms of what I'm working on to get the results that are desired. And we all know that it's really hard to know any of that with certainty before we embark on the journey. So with that, hopefully this gives you a good idea of, all right, we've gotten comfortable with the target for the year. We think this is how we're going to get there. Now, give me the narrative, if you will, on how it's going to happen for each of my key accounts. And just so happens, I have a sample account plan. And in this case, I'm now going to pretend like I'm John, who I believe, John, who is the owner of eHammer Sports. So this is a sample account plan that we created at Upsourced. This comes from many previous lives of mine running revenue and sales teams and partner teams and account teams. And this is what you would expect to see probably at a large agency or a holdco agency or whatever that may be. But believe me, even if you're an indie, you're not above this activity. I think this is in your best interest to prioritize this, especially at the beginning of the year. So here's what we have: a sample account plan that you can use for your agency. I included this slide because I think it's so simple and incredibly valuable for account leaders. And it's something that's often overlooked in many of the clients I work with each and every day at Upsourced. This is from Jenny Plant. She is a consultant who has a ton of experience in thought leadership around account planning. And she's put to words what I've kind of intuitively done and thought about for many years. But she talks about the different levels of effective account management. The first one being level 1 service is, hey, I'm an order taker. Level 2 is I provide a really good experience. The client likes me, but they may not have any other feelings about me. Level three is I'm a challenger. So I'm pushing the client and making sure that we're hitting the outcomes the client told me that they would like to hit, or I'm displaying my performance and ROI as it relates to the spend that the client has with me. And I've aligned with the client on what those are, and then we're hitting those metrics. I know that's not always easy to do, but for many of us, it's something that we should probably stretch to figure out within our key relationships. And then the last one is the trusted leader. The trusted leader is someone that it's really a situation where the client comes to you and says, help me think about the future. Help me think about what I don't see. Here are my future plans. What's your opinion on them, right? And I gave this presentation to a group full of people just a couple of weeks ago, and I had someone approach me after the presentation. It made a really interesting point, and I would agree with the point, that these first three are very much in our control as account leaders. The last one, trusted leader, is not really our decision. Now, hopefully we've earned the right to become a trusted leader, but the client decides if we're a trusted leader. The president decides if we're a trusted leader. The CMO decides if we're a trusted leader, right? And so we have to earn that social capital with that leadership team at the client to even earn the right to become a trusted leader. But I tell you what, if you can earn that spot, it is a powerful place to service clients from. And I believe one thing I did not include here, but Ginny talks about in her talk is, listen, if you're only doing level one or level two account management, you're just trying to retain the revenue you have. Now, if I go back to our account planning, I got to do more than retaining. Now, there are a couple, I guess, that we said, hey, you know what? No new revenue. So let me hop back really quickly. Crappy Airlines is kind of winding down. Victorian College is business as usual. So, okay, we're not going to do too much different, right? But to find significantly more revenue, within my accounts, I got to be a challenger. I got to be a trusted leader. I got to be more than just an order taker or a servicer. So the second two is really where revenue growth comes from in accounts. And I think this is often overlooked. It's very easy to say, hey, what's your budget this year? Okay, we'll do X, Y, and Z. How's that sound with you? Or just wait until the next RFP is released. Or any number of other things. The client tells me, hey, they got some budget at the end of the year, they need to spend it. These are all fine, but I don't want to count on them as a revenue leader or a business owner. I want to have a plan in case the client has nothing for me. And I want to be able to have or put in my ability as much control as I can as it relates to the revenue that I'm seeing from any one given client. And that's what this is all about, right? All right, so we'll move on from there. Let's just use our sample account plan. So we're going to talk about the client. We're going to talk about the client's mission, strategic and financial goals, key stakeholders, customer intimacy. I'll get into that a little bit later. Account performance, spend towers, budget, competitor landscape required for success. That is to say, what is required for success. And then a wrap up on recent meetings in QBR or quarterly business review. Now, a lot of stuff in here. And some of you are probably thinking, shoot, I don't want to do all this, right? Now, there's a reason why we do it. There are actually multiple reasons why we do it. One is this is a really useful artifact in case I ever get hit by a bus as the account leader, or in case I bring on new team members. So even my creative director, if I get a new engineering lead or a new media planner on the relationship, I kick them the account plan and say, welcome to the relationship, right? This will get you up to speed right away. You'll know right away what's going on, what are the key initiatives of the client, how much do they spend with us, who are the key players. So this is a fantastic artifact to disseminate information to the business, but more importantly to the account team themselves. The other reason we do this is, listen, as an account person, and account people tend to make pretty decent money at your average agency. I need to be able to tell the business how I'm going to spend my time. And the business needs to be able to opine on that time that I'm spending, right? So I made this reference in the talk I gave recently, but we create epics and sprints, and we scrutinize to the nth degree of engineers. We do similar things with designers, right? How many proofs and reviews and iterations do we go through? What do we do for account managers? Do we scrutinize everything they do, or do we just say, hey, is the client happy or not, right? I think we have to scrutinize their performance. They have to defend why they're doing the things they're doing, how they're going to get to where we've asked them to go, and then they need to keep a record or keep track of that over time. especially as relationships evolve. And this is a version or way of doing that. All right. So this is the Hammer Esports account plan. Now, I'm going to give you a quick background on this fictional publicly traded company so that you have it as my leader or person receiving this presentation. I'm going to tell you about what their mission is. I want you to understand. I want you to get into the mindset of what they're all about, right? Because how are we supposed to react and respond if we don't just have a good sense of what this company is all about, right? What is going on in the background? So, do they have any big strategic initiatives? Are they acquiring companies? Are they spending a lot of money? Do they have a big technology implementation? When I look at the strategy and financial goals, I'm going to have a mix of these things, right? But I need to know this as the account owner, especially if this is an account that is high six figure, low seven figure, or above. You should know this information about your client. And if they're private, I understand that not all this information is publicly available, but I would ask you, have you asked probing enough questions, and do you have enough trust with the client to actually get some of this information, right? If you don't, that would represent risk to me. That would be an alarm bell or a red flag. I would be worried that you're not close enough to that client, and maybe you're more in a revenue retention area or zone as opposed to a revenue growth zone. All right, so I don't have any pictures here, but these are fake names, of course, at Hammer Esports. The org chart is one of the simplest, most overlooked parts of account planning or just relationship management or sales management in general. Ultimately, while we are selling to this organization, it is the individual people who are going to buy, right? Whether that is the customer I work with every day or their boss or someone else on the other side of the country, I need to know, as my old boss used to say, who's who in the zoo, such that I can navigate the organization and complexity within that organization. If I do not know who's who in the zoo, it is very hard for me to respond accordingly and to navigate the organization and to understand budgets and to drive opportunity on behalf of my agency. And this exercise is critical, okay? And as we all know, corporate environments, small and large, are very dynamic. So this is why we're updating this on at least a quarterly basis, because if the CEO changes, that's a pretty big deal, and that could be really bad or really good for my budget with my current client, right? If the CMO is about to get let go, I need to know, and I need to know who they're going to bring in as the interim, right? These are things I need to stay out ahead of if I'm an account leader. And it's absolutely critical. So what you'll see are several iterations of the same names, but different information about them. So this very first one is just like, hey, what is the quality of the relationship that we have with these players? I don't really know Jay John. I don't really know Anthony Earl. Ellie is our main buyer. She's fantastic. John, we've met a couple times when we've been at the company HQ. He's very supportive of what we're doing. He doesn't know a lot about our work, but he knows that we're doing a good job according to Ellie. And then Earl and Vicky, we've been to dinner with them a couple times. So they don't spend any money with us yet, but they could, right? And we're hoping maybe we get that opportunity at some point in time. Now, if I were to break this down into marketing leadership, where we get a lot of our money, let's take it one step further. Let's understand the players. How are we doing with digital, media, growth, CX? Well, the answer for us is pretty good. We're doing pretty well, right? We don't have a good relationship with Jim Kane. He tends to focus on more engineering-centric endeavors, a lot more product-specific activities. But Jimmy Elm is working on a lot of digital spend with Trista. Alyssa Ellis is a really good person, but she's more on like the customer retention side of things, and we're more on the new acquisition side of things for Hammer Esports. So we don't spend a lot of time with her, but there could be opportunity there someday. And then Tina Day, the chief creative officer, is lockstep with our creative team, and we're always iterating and coming up with new ideas about how to drive new campaigns for the organization. So overall, the relationship's quite good within the marketing department. Let's talk about customer intimacy. So how do we even get there? How do we create those relationships? How do we maintain them? And what are the steps we've taken? What are the steps we're going to take in the future? That's what's really important, right? Customer intimacy is a term I heard a couple years ago from an old boss, and it just struck me right away. I knew right away what it meant, and it is the perfect way to describe our proximity to the customer or client. How well do we know them? How well do they know us? And do we are we the first person that comes to mind when they have a problem? Because ultimately, that's what I want as an account owner, right? I often say to clients, excuse me, at Upsourced, that the test, the hurdle, if you will, for really appropriate customer intimacy, excuse me, is not if the client knows your name, not if the client emails you from time to time. It is, are you in a text thread with your primary buyer or your client? If you're not that close to the client. I hate to tell you, at least in today's world. If you are, you probably have a pretty good relationship. And so think about what that means for you, where you are today, and how you can drive a very quality relationship that then thereafter will drive dollars or opportunity within that organization. So we have a couple notes about intimacy here and things we've done and how much the client likes us. And I'm kind of showing off to my boss now about how much they like us, but you need to know that. You need to know what they think about us. And so I want you to have this information and know that our hard work and all the trips we've taken have resulted in a really great, stable relationship, at least from a qualitative perspective. Now, does that translate to the quantitative, the dollars? We're going to talk about that. So in 2023, we had just to give you some background, a $1 million revenue target. We did just over that. We went ahead and increased it by 10% to 2024. We did 1.3. And now this year, the business has asked me to make a huge jump. Now, part of this is because I actually closed a big deal last year, which is going to result in a lot of this revenue that's already secured. But we got to hit just over 2 million this year. And will we get it? I don't know, but I have a good plan, and I think there's a good chance we get there. So here are some historical deals that we've won. This gives you a good idea of everything that's gone on. If you're thinking to yourself, Craig, do these numbers all add up? Does it all get to where we need to go? Don't spend too much time on that because I didn't tie all these numbers together. But this is just pipeline exports, right? This is just showing the actual deals that make up what we've done. And by the way, if you don't have this information, you need this information. It's really important. You got to show your work. All right. So as an account leader, the place that I'm probably also very focused on is what's in the pipeline right now. What do we propose? What's qualified? What do I see coming? How much do I know about it? Does the client actually have the budget, or is it more speculative in nature? These are things that's really critical. So you can see here, actually, if we win the digital AOR opportunity in September, there's another $2 million in annual budget available for media. We got to win digital AOR, right? Like, so these are the types of things that I need to know about, these big moments, and position my team or our organization to win or receive these opportunities and then win them subsequently, right? And I need to be able to, as the account owner, verbalize this to leadership. And leadership is going to want to know, because guess what? When we go do that pitch for digital AOR, I bet leadership's coming with me, right? They're going to be in that pitch too. It's a really big deal. They make a great impression. Otherwise, we may not get it. And if we don't get it, it's going to completely change the trajectory of this account, right? Now, let's talk about spend and spend towers and budgets and all of that fun stuff. This is just a little bit different view over what we looked at earlier. So this is us understanding, where does our spend come from today, or quote unquote revenue, right? Where is the money we get as an organization come from today? We talked a little bit earlier that we have a great relationship with the marketing department, and so it's coming from them. But what else is out there? This is something that people don't actually do very often that I think is really critical. Even if you don't truly know the answer of what the client's budget may be, take a guess. Try to connect the dots on information that you do know. Maybe ask at dinner. Maybe ask another team member, hey, do you know how much they have to spend? How much does Jim have to spend as a head of growth? We haven't talked to him before, but I'm just kind of interested in what he does and what he spends his time on, right? Do that sleuthing behind the scenes and figure out what type of budgets everybody's working with, because it will surprise you to learn very quickly, whether that's to the up or the down. And so this is really a great way to understand, where is opportunity lie in the future, and directionally, where am I going to spend my time as an account leader and make my bets? And if I don't have this information, I'm flying blind, and that is not what we want to do as people who are in charge of revenue or managing relationships. And of course, this last one is just the pipeline, the pipeline that is occurring right now. Where does it sit? With who, that type of thing. You can see Trista, in the case of media, that digital AOR deals is going to be a big deal for us. And so we think there's a lot of upside if we can grab that. All right. Competitor landscape. This is another thing that I think a lot of organizations overlook. And some clients you have, there are no competitors. It's just you. And that's great if that's the case. But if you're working within a larger corporation or a publicly traded company, I would know who all the players are, because they may not be a problem for you today, but they're probably doing the exact same thing. And they're trying to figure out how they can dip into your budget or the money that you're earning. And you need to know who is in your playground, so to speak, so that they stay on their side and you stay on yours. Or maybe we go on the offensive, right? Maybe if we pick up a new capability, I go after the growth work. I know that Ashby and Reynolds is going to work on the digital AOR pitch, and guess what? I want to win. So if I don't know that much about them, if I don't know the players, if I don't know their value proposition, it's going to be harder for me to speak in an intelligent way, in a way that resonates with the client when I go through that digital AOR process. So just constantly be evaluating, maybe on a quarterly basis is what I mean by constantly. Who are the players that are in the client today? Are they friendly? Are they not? Should I be worried? Should I not? And where do we think there's opportunity to go out and conquest some of the budget that they're getting today? All right. So as the account owner, this is my pitch to leadership. This is what I say. Hey, I've done a lot of the groundwork, and I feel really good about what we've done to date, but this is where I need some more help, and um, give me some answers, right? Tell me what we're doing as an organization. Are we adding new capabilities? Are we hiring better people? Because I told you last year that some of our people just weren't very good and we needed to up our game. Tell me if you can show up with me to the pitch. This is where I put my asks in front of leadership and show them that they can trust me to go get done what needs to get done, but also that I need their help on these specific things to make it happen, right? So this could be any number of things, but this is exactly the type of responsibility you want to instill in your account owner or leader, because it's their job to come up with these, not yours, right? And you want to encourage them to express that level of ownership. These are some notes from the latest QBR. So this is just kind of an FYI about the latest and greatest on all the things I just talked about, and what will be top of mind for you as the person who is running the overall business. And this is just a statement from me kind of summarizing how I feel about the relationship. So in this case, I think the $2 million revenue target for 2025 is within our reach given the pipeline. If we're able to capture digital AOR, and excuse me, because I originally had this as Angelo in a previous presentation, we'll change this to John. We're able to capture digital AOR, 2 million will be likely the low end. We can get 3, right? There's tons of opportunity if we go out and get that digital AOR, right? With executive support, we think we can get there. All right, so why is this critical? I just want to take a step back. As an owner or leader within an agency, I'm not only trying to understand what we have today and how we're taking care of it. I'm not only trying to understand where we think we can go, but I'm also trying to understand what are the I used to call them rainbows, the big bets that are out there that would be green shoots for my business, that would be huge leaps in revenue. I want to know about those, because if they exist, I want to make a couple bets. I want to see if something will pay off, because if I can drive what I'm already counting on, just over $2 million in revenue, if we get this to 3, forget about the 4.8. We're going to blow that out of the water, right? And if I blow that out of the water this year, that means next year I'm probably going to be having, I don't know, a $6.5 million target, right? This is how we grow the business in leaps and bounds. And we only know about these things if our account team has unearthed them, so to speak, verbalized them, and given us a plan on how they might be able to approach those opportunities and why we may even be able to win. But you can see very clearly why, if we don't do this work, starting from the very basics, the very basic spreadsheet work, how would I know about any of this? Otherwise, I'm back to that hope and pray strategy. And hope and pray is not a business strategy. It's not a strategy in many things in life. And while I think you should maybe also hope and pray after you do all your planning, it's just not a way to run it's a very risky way to run a business, any type of business, whether it's an agency or not. This type of activity, our pipeline management, everything we do as revenue leaders is about risk mitigation. It's about sizing up what's in front of us, understanding the risk ahead of us, and mitigating that every step of the way. And to the extent that we're able to be opportunistic and drive opportunity or find opportunity that we didn't quite expect, but would result into those step changes in our business, we want to do that right now. But we can only understand how to navigate those waters, so to speak, if we are keeping really good, accurate information on what has already been secured, what we think we can get, what's the plan to get there, and how we can take this business to where it needs to go. So, with that, I hope this was entertaining. I hope you learned something. I hope you got some value out of the last 40 minutes. If you stayed this long, congratulations. Go grab a beverage or a sparkling water after this. If you would like the template that I showed, by all means, reach out to me, C. Baldwin, at upsourcedaccounting.com, and I can send it to you. You can also, if you're a current Upsourced client, you can reach out to your senior controller or whoever you interface with most often at Upsourced, and they can get it to you as well. And we're happy to have follow-up conversations. I mean, this is not a one and done activity. Like I said, these should be living and breathing artifacts that are constantly being updated within the business, that are great leave behinds. And if you get a new account manager, account owner, then they take over that process and they, are basically running from where the last person left off. So with this, I wish you much success, and until the next time, thanks.